morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. The Arc of California is proud to offer Caring Futures, a proven resource program dedicated to supporting caregivers and family members of adults with disabilities. Understanding the unique challenges faced by family caregivers as they age, Caring Futures offers critical planning assistance, resources, and a supportive community. Caring Conversations is just one part of Caring Futures program here at the Arc of California. We will share more about our other offerings by Caring Futures at the end of today's conversation, so please stay tuned. If you need it, you can turn on closed captioning by clicking the button in the bar below. At the end of today's conversation, there will be a question and answer session, so feel free to type your questions in the Q&A at any time during or after our conversation. Hello, everyone. In case you haven't met me before in a previous Caring Conversation, my name is Felisa Strickland. I am a sole parent caregiver for my daughter, Lily. Lily is 25 years old. She has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, autism, epilepsy, and IDD, and she requires full-time care. We enjoy our challenging and fun life in Santa Barbara, California. Alongside full-time caregiver, I'm a strong advocate for individuals with disabilities and their families. I serve as a board member for the Arc of California, as well as Alpha Resource Center of Santa Barbara. I also participate on many committees and enjoy getting involved in fundraisers and advocacy projects in our community. As a parent, Caring Futures instructor, and parent educator, I am thrilled to be here for this important conversation with you and our special guest. Today's topic is caregiver emergency planning, being ready for the unexpected. Joining us for today's conversation is a multiple Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist, Julia Yarbough. She has over 25 years of experience anchoring and producing content. She was a caregiver to her now deceased mother. Julia's passion for advocating for family caregivers led to the creation of Keeping It Real Caregiving. Julia is an AARP Washington State volunteer. She's held previous positions including communication consultant with Magid Associates, morning anchor and manager of Action News now in Chico, California. Throughout her career, she has also held anchor and reporter positions in Miami, Los Angeles, Kentucky, and Pensacola, Florida. Julia's experience also includes serving as press information officer with the Chico Police Department and media ambassador for the city of Miami Beach. Julia has earned numerous awards, including twice the prestigious NATA's Emmy. The American Society on Aging selected Julia for the 2022 ASA Rise program. She has served as a regional advocate for the California Coalition on Family Caregiving and on the Equity and Aging and Disability Advisory Committee with the California Department of Aging. A native of Fairfield, California, Julia graduated from the University of California, Santa Barbara, with a Bachelor of Science in Economics and currently lives on Lopez Island, Washington, with her husband. Without further ado, please welcome Julia. Good morning, Julia. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Let's see, can you hit the
There we
unmute?
go.
There you go.
Yay.
Good
Okay.
morning.
Good morning, Felisa, and good morning, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much for the invite and the warm welcome. I know everybody's time is extremely valuable, so I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and dive right in. I know we went over some information. Let's see, let's do that first. Let's share screen first
That sounds great.
and get
And then
us all set up.
as you're getting to that, and once you get all set up, please give us a little bit of a, just a synopsis of how you connected caregiving into your life.
Well, you have. Thank you for the warm introduction. I'm going to leave this slide up for a moment. And so for me, caregiving came about the lived experience of caregiving. As you mentioned, I took care of my elderly now deceased mother. She passed at age 90, but for the last 5 to 6 years of her life, that was the heavy duty, hands-on work for me in terms of learning all the ins and outs of how to navigate her health care, her insurance, her housing, her medication, her food, mobility issues, understanding the activities of daily living, what she could do, what she couldn't do, and what I had to learn help her do. Um, Navigating in-home care, then eventually navigating facility care. How do you research that? What's the difference between SNF and ALF? All of those acronyms that I like to talk about, and hopefully
Yeah.
people are educated to. Because my background is that of a journalist, the storytelling part came very easy for me. And I realized that although I thought I was prepared, I still had so many items that came at me that I did not know about, that I had to sift through. And I realized that as our population is aging, not only in California, my home state, yay, not only California, but the entire country, we are an aging population. And our current systems are now more aware of that reality, but there are still many systems that need upgrading, adjusting, and the bottom line is that family caregivers need more assistance because it is physically, emotionally, and financially overwhelming when you're in it. So I'm sure that many of you on this call understand that. I know that there are many of you here who are probably from different organizations. And so it's really good for us to be able to share that information, educate the public, and really tap into those lived experiences so that we can have policy from the top down, but programs that help the people that are boots on the ground. So that's where I came into the mix with keeping it real caregiving. So I'm really
Awesome.
excited to be
Thank you.
here.
Yeah.
Um,
We're happy to have you. I'm just
and
going to
and
let you sort of take it away.
No, I absolutely love that we connected and talked about the idea of doing a session on emergency planning. This is a topic that I have been pounding the drum on for many years, because, as you said, I lived and worked in Chico, California, the real Northern California, in Butte County. And so I was extremely aware of wildfire danger every single season. And if I could, I want to share a quick story that really drove it home for me. I'm sure that many of you remember the Camp Fire of 2018, which decimated the town of Paradise, which was 30 miles up the road from Chico. I covered a story of a husband and wife, and the wife was completely bedridden from Parkinson's and a number of other um, medical situations. And her husband literally made it out of the house with only their lives. But I remember interviewing them, and the husband had to lift his wife up out of the bed. He had time to put her into the van and grab her wheelchair, and that was it. And they had to get out of Paradise. And that really struck home for me of thinking, man, at that time I was taking care of my mother. What would I need to do in order to move quickly, to be prepared, to be ready? Because it wasn't as simple as just me. I had my elderly mother that I would have to think about. Hence, this focus on emergency planning. So that's really the concept that I want to talk to all of you about today. And I want to put this into your mind of this concept of it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. Write that down. Repeat it to yourself. Let it become your mantra. And whether it is wildfire, flood, earthquake, hurricane, tornado, we've all watched the news around the country. Any of these situations could happen at any moment. It is not if, but when.
Yeah. So true. So true.
And I know, Felisa, you're in Santa Barbara. We've watched the news over the last chunk of years of how many different wildfires have been in that region. I went to school in Santa Barbara. I know the topography. And so here's something that I want all of you to think about. I'm going to slide this little toolbar off of mine so I can see. According to an AARP study in 2023, the question was asked, are you ready for a natural disaster of those who were 50 plus? 59% said, yeah, I'm ready for a natural disaster. However, okay, let's see here. There we go. Uh, More than half said they had no portable charging device. So
Mm.
what's going to happen if you're away from your home? The majority said they had no digital copies of their important documents, insurance, medical, deeds, legal papers. And they also said that the majority had no emergency alert apps or programs set up on their phones or at their house. I can tell you that being signed up for an emergency alert through my county, Butte County, and a huge shout out to Butte County Sheriff's Department, that was my first alert that something big was happening and that I needed to take evasive steps. So if we think about these statistics, clearly not enough people are thinking about being prepared. Now add to that the role of a caregiver, whether it is an elder, a child, an individual with disabilities. How much time would you need and how much additional resource planning do you have to have in place to make sure that you and your loved ones are safe if you get that call that you have to go? All right, so let that sink in. It's not if, it is when. So let's roll the clock back or the calendar to June 24th, 2024. Butte County, Chico, the Northern California Park Fire. And for those of you who don't remember, this is the one where the guy pushed his flaming car into the ravine, thinking he was going to hide it from a crime, and then it started the fire, right?
It
I am
just
a
gave me
victim of
goosebumps.
the Northern California Park Fire. Okay. Never thought it would happen, except in the back of my mind, I always did think, what if? And a lot of that, again, was because I was taking care of my mother. And so I don't have a mindset of gloom and doom. I didn't spend every day thinking, oh my gosh, there's going to be a fire. No, I thought I live in a wooded area. I live in a very rural area. I lived on a street that there was one road up into the hills and one road down. What if that road was blocked? What if I couldn't get out? Right? So there was always a sense, not if, but when. And that led to always making sure that I had it in the back of my mind. So I just want to play a couple of little clips for you. I had the rare opportunity, in a weird way, of actually watching my house burn.
Mm.
So a shout out to Simply Safe Security Systems. It's not Ring, it's Simply Safe. Our cameras captured the fire happening from the outside, from the front of the house, from the inside of the house, literally until the heat and the flames burned the cameras and they could no longer record. So this first clip is from my backyard looking into my kitchen, where you can see the bright orange. That was my kitchen window. The front, where the flames are coming out the top, is my garage. And at this point, my husband and I were in our camper van parked in front of a friend's house, hoping and praying that CAL FIRE would be able to get to it in time. And crews were there. Shout out to CAL FIRE. They worked tremendously this night, but there simply were too many houses and the flames were too strong. So I'm just going to play a short little clip, but this is what we watched on our Simply Safe camera. That sound you hear was our neighbor who stayed way too long spraying water onto his house. But you can see how the flames just are spreading. And
Just so
then
fast. Just a matter
in
of
that little
seconds.
bit, so right here, it moves from the garage. There's an explosion on the inside of the house, which was probably the water heater. And then it moved into the kitchen and into the rest of the house, right? So for somebody who needs to get out quickly, you simply do not have time. You don't have time. This is a quick clip from the inside of the house. Um, and you can see, I'm going to scroll it forward. You can see the flames through that right here in the middle. You can see embers starting to go through the home. At this point, we knew our home was lost. It was just a matter of weirdly watching the train wreck happen. But I just wanted to show that to you as a reminder that, again, it's not if, it's when. Very real, difficult to take in, but it happened. Why the setup to this at this point? Okay. This is an image from CAL FIRE. These are images of fires from 2025, right? If you live in California, you know this is the reality. So again, I want you to think about hoping that the worst never happens, but especially if you're a caregiver, plan as if it will, right? In 2025, there were 8,232 acres burned in California, 507,000 acres in all, 31 fatalities. For 2026, we're April 23rd, we've already had 707 wildfires in California.
Wow.
It is April 23rd. Hope the worst never happens, but plan as if you are next in line. So, what does that look like for caregivers? First up, and this is true for everybody, make sure you know your evacuation zones. If your county or your city sets up evacuation zones, know what your zone is so that if you may not hear your address, but if you hear evacuation warning for zone 12 and you go, oh, I'm in zone 11, but zone 12 is right next door, I might be next. And then you hear your zone, you know it is time to go. Know your evacuation route. How are you going to get in and out? What are the streets you need to take? What might be blocked? What might be closed off? Take that into consideration when people say, oh, I've got time. No, you don't. What if that evacuation route or zone is or that route is closed and then you can't get in or out? And especially if you live in foothill areas where you have windy roads. Now, again, add to that, you're a caregiver. You have additional planning to put in place. Rehearse your emergency plan. I know it feels silly, it feels crazy, but the more you rehearse anything, the better you are at it. Sports players don't just go to a game, they rehearse, they practice. It can feel daunting. I can tell you the night of the park fire, when we heard that our zone was that was put into an emergency, a fire evacuation warning. I said to my husband, you know what? Let's use this as a drill and see how quickly we can grab our items, hook up our little camper trailer, and hit the road. Let's use it as a planning, as a rehearsal. We thought we would be coming home that night. We thought for certain that they would tackle that fire. After all, the air tac office was right down the road from where we lived, the planes that, fly over. Thank goodness we decided to rehearse, but we also knew ahead of time what our plan would be. Sign up for those local emergency alerts. A number of different apps out there that you can type in your address and they link into what's happening, right? Each county may have its own alert system. I urge all of you to check today when you're done with this call. Check your county to find out what your police department, your fire department, and your sheriff's department, what is the emergency alert app that they use or system so that they are alerting you and contacting you. There's an emergency and it's time to go. What's our mantra today? Hope it never happens, but plan as if it will. Go bags. It used to be that we'd talk about go bags only in those Armageddon type movies. Now, I talk to people about go bags all the time. And if you don't have one, I think I know what you're doing this weekend. You are putting your go bags together. That's what you're doing this Saturday and Sunday, right? I can't see all of you, but you're shaking your heads, yes. This was the back of our Jeep, and this is what we left our home with. Not sure why I grabbed that old Coleman grill, but I did. Two plastic bins that had some of our important documents. Those were my go bins. Black duffel bag was my husband's. Silver duffel bag was mine. That was it. That's what we left with. And that was it. from our entire home. But the good thing was we had those bags packed. Should I have grabbed more? Yes. Do I wish I had grabbed more? Yes. But ironically, for caregivers, it is so crucial that you have these bags. That silver bag originally was my mother's go bag. When mom was still with me, the items that I had in her go bag, I wrote these down so I could just read them off to you. Um, I made sure that I had two changes of clothes for my mother, a week's worth of underclothes, an additional package of adult underwear, all of her personal toiletries, a week's worth of all of her medications separated into baggies, extra toilet paper, hand wipes, copies of all of her important documents, including her insurance cards, her Medicare cards, her passport, her military ID card, all the contact information for her doctors. You do not have time in an emergency to gather all of that. Now, on the backside, imagine that you have to go, your home is finished, and you have nothing to go back to. If you don't already have those medications with you and set aside, imagine the extra stress that you are putting on yourself to try to contact those doctors, get those medications, get those refills. You don't have time. Not to mention, there may be 20, 30, 50, 100 other people doing the exact same thing. Prepare in advance if you have the caregiving role. This is not an option. You do not have the luxury to not plan ahead because it literally could be the difference between life and death for you and your loved one. So those go bags, crucial. Again, I mentioned the hard copies of documents. Make scans, get them into the cloud. Make copies, send them to other relatives. Put them on a hard drive. One thing that I did grab that was down in my go bag in these bins, I have a dry bag that I kept all of my hard drives in. And I grabbed that because I knew that all of my documents would be on those hard drives, right? Uh, and a simple thing, keep your gas tanks full. You never know when you're going to need to roll out, and you don't know how far you may have to drive or how much you may be sitting in traffic. I know gas prices are high right now, but again, this is being prepared, right? Things to think about, especially for a caregiver. And the way I look at it is remove the items that could potentially add more stress and strain for you and your loved one, so that in this moment, when it happens, you at least can focus on your emotions and the emotions of your loved one and not have to worry about the logistics. This was the day after the fire. Um, we evacuated over to Roseville, and I should pause here and see if there are any questions. I know I'm going fast, but I want to make sure that we cover a lot. And again, what's our mantra? Not if, when. Okay. Switching gears just a little bit. I talked about acronyms earlier. In my case, mom was no longer with me. And while I miss my mother every day, thank goodness that my mother was no longer with me when this fire happened. But it does lead to another issue that I want all of you to think about. If you have a loved one that is in facility care, assisted living facility, or skilled nursing facility, it is absolutely imperative that you find out from that facility, what is their emergency plan? Do they have one? Do they have backup generators? Are they signed up with their local police, fire, and sheriff's department in the case of emergencies so that they get those alerts? And key here, if they have to evacuate, where do they go? How are they able to actually house their clients? Do they have partnerships with other facilities? Where do they go and how quickly can they move? What is their plan? All right. Each region may be different, but I urge you to research those situations. Okay. Know your local hotels. It sounds simple, but if you are a caregiver and you have an individual who's older, who needs mobility help, an individual with a disability, you may not be able to pick just any hotel room or any location. Know ahead of time locations that suit your needs. It may be 2 or 3 cities over, right? But doing a little bit of homework before a crisis hits can save you so much heartache, and it literally could possibly save your life in the moment. That couple I told you about that needed to evacuate from Paradise, when I did interview them, they were staying in a cold, drafty garage of a friend that they knew in Chico. That was the only place that had that the husband was able to have somebody who had an extra bed for his wife. And it broke my heart to cover that story. Um, but plan ahead as much as you can. We talked a little bit about the medications. Have a stockpile of your medication separate. Again, maybe baggies, maybe containers, but have enough to last you maybe a week or two so that you have that lag time if you had to replace them. Make sure you have your doctor information. Make sure you have your insurance information, right? I love that we're in this tech world where we can make copies of everything and load it to the cloud. An item that I didn't do, I always talk about being prepared, and this is one that breaks my heart to no end. Depending on your age in here, you still have hard copy photos. I know younger kids are like, what are photo albums? I had more than 20 photo albums. Maybe, I don't know. I had tons of photo albums from the time I was a little kid. Plus, I had all of my mother's photo albums because mom lived with me. I had failed to take the time to digitize all my photos. Anything else in my house could be replaced. It was just stuff. I can't get my photos back. And every day it breaks my heart because that was my life, my family history, those memories. Digitize your photos. Take the time to just order one of those scanners. Please don't do what I did in this line. Digitize your photos, right? Any questions?
We do have a few questions. They're popping in the Q&A, but we can go ahead and keep going and then do all
Okay.
those at the end if that's okay.
Yeah, okay. Um, so we talked about some of the prep work. Um, we talked about thinking ahead, thinking of not if, but when. Um, on July or June 25th, a CBS News crew reached out to me because of my background as a news person. Um, and they, of course, were in the Chico area and they asked if I would talk. Now, typically I would have said no, even though this is my career. But I also know that when the sheriff's department and the police department close off an area for safety, they will not let you back into the properties, right? And you're all burning to know, or that's a bad word. You're all really curious to know, did my house make it? What's left? Are my neighbors okay? So when the news crew reached out to me and said, can we talk to you? I said, yes, only if you let me go with you back to my neighborhood so I can see for myself how things shook out. So I just want to play this clip from the CBS Evening News with former anchor Nora O'Donnell. And they captured everything pretty well.
We do want to start with the breaking news about a major wildfire in California. The incredible pictures just coming in showing intense flames devouring buildings, cars, anything in its way near Chico, that is north of Sacramento. And tonight, investigators say all of this destruction was caused by a suspected arsonist who has now been charged with causing the state's largest wildfire so far this year. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti is in Northern California and spoke to a woman who saw how it all began.
In Northern California, this wildfire, pushed by powerful winds, ripped through a community near the city of Chico. As thousands evacuated, the fire engulfed everything in its path, leaving a trail of devastation. Julia Yarbough watched her house burn on her home security camera. We were with her as she returned for the first time.
You know, we're shell-shocked right now. It really is surreal.
This time-lapse video shows the fire's astonishing growth. Starting small, growing into the evening, and overnight exploding. First to 45,000 and now more than 70,000 acres, all in less than 24 hours. It's by far California's largest wildfire this year. And investigators arrested a 42-year-old man on suspicion of arson. Witnesses say they saw him with his car already burning in a ditch.
And then he got out of the car, kind of looked at it, and when I turned back, he was gone.
And in Western Canada, a massive forest fire is now burning in British Columbia, while in Alberta, the tourist town of Jasper has suffered what authorities call a significant loss. Back in California, life went from normal to heartbreak in an instant.
What does home mean to you now?
I think home really means the people that you care about and who cares about you.
And tonight, more than a dozen homes look like this one, charred down to their foundation. 1,100 firefighters are now battling this blaze, and for good reason. We're just 14 miles away from the town of Paradise, which was destroyed by fire in 2018, Nora.
Jonathan Vigliotti, thank you so much. We do want to.
So yeah, shout out to Jonathan Vigliotti. Ironically, side story, as a communications coach working with news talent, I would often use Jonathan's stories as examples for really good storytelling. So it was quite an honor for me to meet him and work together, although sadly under these circumstances. The planning and preparing, it's so crucial. We can't talk about it enough. Not if, but when. Carry that with you all the time, especially in California. I love the Golden State. I am a true fan of California, born and raised there. But I also know the dangers that our state faces with drought and the heat, increased population, people building right up into the foothills. We were guilty of that as well. Work with your fire departments and your county sheriffs with defensible space options as well. And if you are a caregiver, you absolutely must take this seriously. You will not have time in the moment. Have a plan, right? I always like to say, think of the absolute worst that could happen and plan backwards from there. So if it happens, you've got a game plan. You know what you need to do. You know what you need to grab. You know what you need to have set aside. And then you can face whatever happens in the moment. I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. This first image on this slide was actually the photo from the sales when we first bought our house in 2016. We changed it a little bit, but it was just such a beautiful dream home for us. And we were right along a creek, and I had wildlife and just a beautiful, wonderful area. A wonderful home, and we met wonderful friends and colleagues in Chico, Butte County. And in 2 hours, not even 2 hours, it was gone, right? That's how quickly it happened. I believe I saw the first embers at about, I think it was 11:20-ish. By 12:15, the video you saw, that was it, like that, gone. So these next pictures were when my husband and I went back down to sift through some of the items. And because I'm a journalist, I capture everything. But it was heartbreaking to look through it. But at the same time, I felt good knowing that nobody in our area was hurt or lost their lives. We lost 6 houses on our street. The fire ping-ponged. So don't think that fire, it does it just picked and made a choice of which houses to take out. Our neighbors, both older, lost their home, but the people right on the next side didn't lose their home, but the house next to them burned to the ground, right? So it ping-ponged. The good news out of all of this is that it really helped me understand, A, take those precautions seriously. And I know we get busy. I know life is hectic, but set aside even one weekend to say, you know what? I'm going to put that go bag together. Get started with that concept. One for yourself, one for whomever you may be caring for. Check on your neighbors. If your neighbors are older or have disabilities, check on them as well and ask, what can I do to assist them so that when this happens in your community, you all have a plan. We instantly all called all of our neighbors. That was how tight we were in that neighborhood. Have a plan, think ahead, right? And then remember that we all come out on the other side, right? So I'm happy to say that despite all of this, the fire pushed us into a new world. My husband and I now live in Washington State. I miss California. I love my state, as I said earlier. Um, but there's a whole other side to this story, which is insurance and the process of having our insurance claim settled, our property cleared, the idea of could we rebuild, the idea of could we get insurance, wasn't feasible to stay put in California. That shot where where you saw him standing in front of the debris, that was one of our neighbors' properties. And I think they just finished getting their house rebuilt like last month or this month, right? So that's almost a full 2 years. So we now live in Washington State in a beautiful community where there's some water, and we're happy here. And this also has pushed me to try to share my story more with people. I really want all of you to think about planning, preparing. As a journalist, I covered all manner of uh, disaster. I covered hurricanes in the Florida Keys and in Puerto Rico. I covered fires in Florida and in the Gulf Coast. I covered Hurricane Katrina. I covered tornadoes in the Midwest. So I've always seen it. I've always seen those families who, in a heartbeat, their life changes, which is why I always thought not if, but when. Why not me? So, with that, uh, I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's given you food for thought. Again, I'm Julia Yarbough. My platform is Keeping It Real Caregiving. I have a Substack newsletter. Please consider subscribing. This is a one-woman independent effort to share information. So I would love it if you would consider upgrading your subscription to a paid subscription. Check it out, support this work. And if the QR code works properly, I checked it, I think it works. I created a short survey and we'll send that out afterwards also. I would love to get some feedback from those of you on this call, if this was helpful, what I could do, what I could add, what I could take away. But the most important thing is please, please, please think about what you and your family need. It's different for everybody, but take the time to prepare in advance because it could happen at any moment. So
Thank you
with
so
that,
much.
we have time for questions.
Julia, thank you so much. I'm sitting over here just still like a little bit weepy. I've got goosebumps. I mean, your story was really, really moving, and just the potential for how quickly that could happen to any of us, any day, any moment, and the importance of being prepared. I mean, you really hit it home. So thank you so much for that presentation. I know we do have some questions. Let me just go over a couple more things before we get to the questions. I want to share with everybody a little bit more about Caring Futures. Many of you might already know, but we have future planning classes called The Future Is Now, Designing a Support Plan for You and Your Adult Family Member. It's a 6-week live online class series where caregivers develop a comprehensive future planning guide for the caregiver and their adult family member with a disability, all in a small and welcoming environment. We're excited to announce that we also have self-paced online classes as well. We developed those last year, and that's also another way to take the class without, doing it on your own time. So you don't have to worry about getting to some class on, at a specific time, but you can go and do that at your own pace. We have Self-Care Matters classes, Well-Being for the Caregiver, and that's a 2-week live online class series where caregivers learn about practice tips, resources, and strategies to improve and sustain their well-being. Also, if you want to continue this conversation, then I invite you to join our Caring Futures Facebook group. It's a private group for only family caregivers and is a safe space for us to share our triumphs and challenges. A link to the Facebook group will be posted in the chat right now. So again, thank you so much, Julia, for taking the time to share your story with us today. I was extremely moved and very, now I know why you wanted to grab some tissues. It was, it's, it was really, really, thank you so much. So let's go to the Q&A and see what questions we have. Feel free to continue to type those in. We have about 15 minutes for questions, so we're happy to answer them for everyone. And let's go ahead and pull them up. It looks like some of them are comments, but I'll just go straight from the top. Victoria says, our son is in a neighboring town 12 miles away. How to plan for that? So that's a good thing. So the person that you love and care for is not necessarily in your home. So I think you touched a little bit about that, Julia. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, and if your loved one is not physically with you, it is crucial to understand what the emergency plan is for the location where your loved one is being cared for. Um, are there additional people that you could be in touch with so that you're not just assuming that they're handling everything? Is there maybe a third person that you could call who's in that area? And this is really where that idea of community comes in. I'm going to venture to say, I think in a lot of communities, sadly, we've lost that human connection with one another. It is so vital that we have those connections with people because that's going to make a difference. Another item that I would encourage everybody to think about, uh, individual fire departments, and maybe not all of them offer it, but contact your fire department and your sheriff's department and ask if they have a program that allows you to submit your personal information into their system. That way, if they get a call from that address, it will show up that person X is, say, 89. They're in the back room of the house. They have these medical issues. I know that the Chico Fire Department had a program like that, but it was voluntary. You had to call, you had to go online and sign up. That can also be a way to assist. Lean into your local emergency response teams. Check to see what programs they have so that you can have a network. Don't just rely on the one location where your loved one may be at.
Thank you, Julia. And yeah, and I was thinking also maybe coordinate with that where your son lives, or that wherever your person with a disability or that you're caring for lives, is make sure that they coordinate, contacting you, like as an emergency contact for so that you can be aware of what's happening in that space as well. Make that be part of the
Mhm.
emergency plan, right? Is to
Exactly.
contact all the family members or the family member, whoever you designate. Um, a common question on our Q&A today is, and I had this question too. I was thinking to myself, do I need to type that in, or I probably can just ask you? And I see that many have also asked it, is about the extra medications for go bags. I've thought of that so many times. Most of the medications that my daughter takes don't allow me to pick them up, except for on a timed schedule. Most of them, not all of them, but some of them are controlled substances, so they won't give you additional medications. So, how do you overcome that? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. And I should have clarified how I did that in my household because it was the same thing with my mom. We had that 90-day window and,
Mhm.
come hell or high water. Oops, come high water, you couldn't get more. Um, so not necessarily having additional. So let's say she had one container of metformin. And I knew that it couldn't be refilled for X amount of time, but I might shake out 10 metformin and put them in a little baggie and set them aside. So I would still have to refill, and I couldn't get advanced refills. But as we came close to the end, I might use the 10 that were in the bags because I knew I couldn't get a refill. But then you just refill up the bag. So it's a constant rotation, knowing that you have at least enough to hold you if you had to evacuate. And then you'd have maybe 5 days, 10 days. And in that time, that would be your first priority after evacuating, getting situated. And then you would have time to contact the doctor's offices, contact your insurance, explain what has happened. So not a complete additional prescription, just a few separated, if that
That
makes sense.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes good sense. I understand that completely. And chances are, if a natural disaster emergency type situation like that, they're going to make exceptions to things like, your medication was burned in a fire, right? So,
exactly.
yeah, so you would be able to get a refill, but you would also have a little stocked in your go bag, ready to go.
Exactly.
So
And
it may
that's
be.
why it's so important also to have the copy of those insurance cards, your Medicare card, your doctor's phone numbers, and anything that falls into the category of the care component, have copies of all of that and extra set aside because the hurdles that you have to then go through to navigate if it was completely all gone just adds to your level of stress and strain. But if you've done it ahead of time, at least that's handled, and then you can focus on what's right in front of you.
Thank you. Yeah, and Carol says, I live in a community right next to the Altadena Eaton fire. We were in evacuation warning yellow zone, but decided to evacuate anyway. I thought I was prepared and found out I hadn't updated anything in a long time. When we got home, that became a top priority for me. Good job, Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And and I'm so glad, it sounds like you were okay, Carol, and I'm glad for that. Unfortunately, and I think this is human nature, quite often we wait until there is a crisis or something happens and then we go, "Oh my gosh, I need to do that." It's just so important to have that little nudge. I think the universe sort of gives us warnings, right? They're little nudges saying, do this, right?
It's so true. Listen to those little tiny voices. Sometimes,
Yeah.
they're there for, especially if they keep repeating the same thing.
Right. It's the little voice, it's the little fate on your shoulder saying, do this, do this.
Yes. Um, let's see. What if it's a person whose medication is only on a certain refill because okay, yeah, we've got that. And then Carol also notes, make a go list that is broken down by how much time you have before evacuating,
Hmm.
5, 15, 1 hour lists. That's a good idea too. Start with the most important items, and then if you have more time, keep going down the list to take as much as you can.
Yeah. And that's an excellent point. One of the items, I showed you the picture, and we had our go bins, as I call them. Um, and while I didn't save all of my photo albums, I did save a handful of pictures that I thought to myself, I would be completely devastated if I lost these. So there were a few pictures of my parents, and I would have liked them on my mantle, but instead I put them in the go bin. So I have maybe 20 pictures that I saved because they were in that bin. And think about the time you have. I do want to mention that, and this will be in a handout that we send out afterwards. Uh, if you haven't recently, visit CAL FIRE. They have a Ready for Wildfire planning tool. When I was still in California, this actually wasn't part of their platform. They still had an app that they were using. But the My Wildfire Preparedness Plan allows you to go to CAL FIRE, go to Ready for Wildfire, you type in your zip code, and it will then ask you a series of questions. Do you have a pool? Do you have any livestock? Are you on a cliff or, I mean, a steep hill? Who else is in your home? You answer all of those different questions, and then it will provide for you a checklist for each of the different areas. So I typed in my former zip codes just to see what would come up, and it gave me four different checklists. One was for tips for home hardening for defensible space. One was for preparing for evacuation, and it had 29 different steps in it. There was an evacuation checklist that showed up that had 11 steps and defensible space. And so all of these items was pre-populated and it would give me those lists. So I highly encourage all of you to if to do that, especially if if you're in California and if you're elsewhere, check to see what your state's fire agency offers or your county's fire agency.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah, I love that idea. You were telling us about that before the webinar, and I'm going to go and do that right after this because I want to make sure that I can
Yeah.
get that checklist. We've got some great comments in here I want to share. Carol also adds, in addition to having a full gas tank, when you get the first alert, also turn your car around facing out for easy exit. That's a great, great point. Then start loading your car, even if you aren't yet leaving. It takes much longer than you think. We've got another attendee that says, great presentation, both content and delivery. Thank you. They're also suggesting eyeglasses, hearing aids, sound protection for ASD folks, vibes, earplugs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that would be our house.
Yes.
Um, and then what if cell service is down? Learn to use satellite connection, newer iPhones. Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, do you have any thoughts on that, Julia?
Uh, Not specifically, other than it can feel like a throwback and old school for some folks. Ham radio. My husband is a ham radio operator, so we
Mm.
also have ham radio. We don't hear about it that often anymore. Such an incredibly valuable tool. Because depending on where you live, if towers go down, you may not have cell service. That's a
Good
fact,
point.
right?
Yeah. And if you know
Um,
that that's a possibility, then having like something like that on hand would be,
right. Yeah,
yeah,
and old school radios also, because then at least you could still tune in to your radio stations, which are likely giving out some of those emergency notices as well.
awesome. Robin says, just wanted to say how sorry I am for Julia's loss and the loss of your mother.
Well,
Also
thank you.
wanted to thank you for this conversation because it really makes us think about what we need to be prepared for as well as what we do moving forward. Thank you, Robin. Joyce, thank you for the urgent reminder. I've started go bags so many times, but get overwhelmed and don't seem to complete them. So yeah, let's get those done, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
this has really been moving for me too, because these are things that I want to do, but I keep putting them off. So this
yeah.
is an urgent reminder. Thank you so much.
And
Robin,
just a quick point to that, don't let it overwhelm you. It could be, and we routinely go through and update our go bags. It could be something as simple as just going, okay, what were to happen if I had to leave my house right now and I was gone for 2 days?
hmm
Start there and say, what would I want with me? That can be your starting point. Now it's a couple of days and you go, you know what? I don't want to wear the same clothes and underclothes for 3 days. Maybe I should pack two two changes of clothes.
Yes.
Just and then add to it. And then you start to fine tune. And that's when you become a little bit more confident and you'll feel more comfortable knowing that if you had to go quickly, you would have what you need.
Excellent suggestion. Robin also says, makes me think about when I leave my son with a caregiver. Before we leave, they should know about our emergency plan as well. Excellent
Excellent.
point. Yeah,
Excellent.
everybody needs to know the plan, right? Uh,
Robin, you're going to be in our next webinar together that if I talk about planning. That's an excellent point, right?
yeah,
Because all of you know it, but who else knows it?
yeah. Carol says, I asked our fire department about whether there was a system to let them know ahead of time that we have a disabled nonverbal person in our house. He said he had never heard of something like that, but did not have a suggestion for me how to make that happen. So yeah, that's something we need to get advocating for because and I know that there are lots of people that have gotten those kinds of things in motion. But
Right.
a formal process would definitely be something that we want to consider there. That's a great point, Carol. Thank you.
So, Carol, to that point, and I love that you reached out to your department. The program that Chico used is something called Community Connect, and they still use it. Uh, the departments have to purchase it, and they work with a contract with that agency. But basically, it's computer devices that allows them to put that information straight into their dispatch.
So
If
important.
your local department doesn't do that, also, if you're in California, check with your local CAL FIRE outlet because they may actually allow you to put that information directly into dispatch.
Thank you.
But
That's
it's
great.
called Community Connect.
Yeah, and I think Julia just put that in the chat too. The other Julia.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got Michael saying, consider evacuating early to avoid congestion. You can use it as a practice drill to see what
Mhm.
might need to change. Yep, good point. And then TV stations and AM radio broadcasters are required to share emergency alert information as part of their license. So he was also making the same suggestion about the handheld ham radios are easy
Mhm.
to use and inexpensive without having to be very tech fluent. So build your preparedness over time. Great suggestion. What a wonderful, caring conversation. Julia, great presentation. Thank you everyone who asked questions and made suggestions. The Q&A was just as lively as the webinar. I love that. Yeah, so any other last, we've got like 1 minute and I think a couple, let's see, there were a couple more things. Robin says, I have been told to simply make sure that we take our son to our police department or fire station and introduce him to the authorities. Just make them aware that we have a nonverbal disabled person in the household. Also, to make sure your neighbors in the area know about your child, take them on walks, etc. And then Michael says California utility providers can be a place to report people who might need evacuation assistance. And then Carol is asking, how do I contact CAL FIRE?
Would you could go onto the website, or depending on what county you're in, do a quick online search of your CAL FIRE regional office. Um, but I would start just on the website and then send in a note via email or ask for the local CAL FIRE representative in your county. And usually it would be a battalion commander or the public information officer. And that's a good way to start too, rather than the teams out on the ground. If you start with your public information officer, that way they're used to interacting and they can guide you through all of that. I know we have zero time left. I would be curious to know what county you're in.
Carol, what county are you in? Let's see. There she goes, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles County. Yeah, and I know if don't quote me on this, but I believe that the individual departments work in tandem with CAL FIRE. So in the smaller rural communities, CAL FIRE is the largest agency, where in Los Angeles County, it might be actually your county fire department. Um, I would say go to the CAL FIRE website, send in an email, and then ask for who your PIO, your public information officer, is for Los Angeles County.
Excellent. Thank you so much again,
Yeah.
Julia. What a fantastic
Thank you.
presentation. Thank you everyone who joined us today. Really great conversation in the chat too, the Q&A. So we thank you for that and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.